Oh my God. Is there any debate? Is this actually a real debate? Or is it, who the f is this fucking loser? Is it Rabbi Shmuley? I can't believe he's giving pushback to Norm on this debate, and he let this guy yap on the most retarded ad hom for like 20 minutes.
But you can't sit here and tell me that the man is cognitively well.
Joe Biden and his gangs fast-tracked to hell.
Destiny versus Piers Morgan on Trump, Biden, Israel, Hamas, and more.
Donald Trump's improbable return to the White House took another huge step forward at the weekend as he crushed Nikki Haley in the Republican primary in her home state of South Carolina. The former president didn't even need to turn up for the results, choosing instead to give another one of his barnstorming rally speeches to the Conservative Party Action Conference. And as usual, he didn't hold back.
A vote for Trump is your ticket back to freedom. It's your passport out of tyranny. And it's your only escape from Joe Biden and his gangs fast-tracked to hell. And in many ways, we're living in hell right now.
Well, nationwide polls suggest Trump is on track to beat President Biden in November's election. So can anything stop him? And what will Trump, the sequel, mean for America and the world? Here's a debate with one of Trump's most vocal critics, the hugely influential YouTube political commentator Destiny, and the host of Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren. Okay, Destiny, you voted for Joe Biden last time. I think it's safe to assume you won't be voting for Donald Trump this time, but are you comfortable voting for Biden given the state...
What was he doing when he got introduced there?
Hugely influential YouTube...
What the f*** was he doing?
Here's a debate with one of Trump's most vocal critics, the hugely influential YouTube political commentator Destiny, and the host of Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren. Okay, Destiny, you voted for Joe Biden last time. I think it's safe to assume you won't be voting for Donald Trump this time, but are you comfortable voting for Biden given the state that he now appears to be in?
Every time somebody attacks Biden on his senility, I feel like that is a stronger indictment of Trump's own failure as a president. I do agree that Biden definitely seems to have slowed down in his older age, but I mean, he passed so much more legislation than Trump. I think our foreign policy aims are better than they were under Trump. And I think the way that he manages the rhetoric and the overall attitude of the country is way more responsible than Trump as well. And he's not facing 90+ criminal indictments. So
that may well be true, but the reality is perception is often half the battle with an election campaign. The perception is that Donald Trump is a little bit younger, but has twice the energy, twice the dynamism, and all the stuff that's being thrown at him, far from defeating him, as is usually the case with politicians, has empowered him and made him stronger. What are the Democrats going to do about that come November?
I think all Democrats can kind of hope for is that the perception of the economy continues to increase. Consumer sentiment is starting to climb again. I think that Trump is also stumbling into a few misspeaks on his own. I think there was that clip of him mixing up Nikki Haley and Pelosi. There was him talking about, I think it was the deserts of Vietnam. Both of these guys are definitely, I'd say, hitting their older age, their golden years. So I don't know if Trump is going to be free of any of the misspeaks that Biden has found himself stumbling into recently as well.
Well, Tommy, let's just play a clip. This is of Trump doing his...
Why are the presidential candidates so old? Why? You're a country of 330 million people, in the richest, most powerful military, technological, whatever powerhouse of the planet. And where are the bright, young, fresh, vibrant 45, 46, 47, 8-year-old where are these guys? Where are the mid-40s, early 50s people? These fucking titans, charisma engines, grabbing the popular support and promising themselves as a reasonable candidate for the presidency. Where are they? Where are the obamnas?
His Biden impression the other day.
When I imitate Biden, who can't find the stairs ever, she goes like this. Thank you. Where am I? Thank you. And then he goes. And he points. And then.
You see, Tommy, the interesting thing with me about Trump, I've known him a long time. I look at him, warts and all, good, bad, ugly. There's plenty of all of that with Trump. But his supporters love him.
Is so funny.
And one of the reasons I think that he's so popular with so many Americans is because he makes them laugh. And I watched that speech the other day. He was very funny. Not always, and some of it, as always with Trump, some of the hyperbolic rhetoric was a bit alarming. But actually, he was an entertainer entertaining the crowd. That's why they like him. That's why they vote for him.
They like him because he has charisma. I like him because he has charisma. I also like him because when Donald Trump was my president, the economy was doing well. We ended endless wars. We started no new wars. There was relatively peace around the world with Donald Trump at the helm of the United States of America. People didn't like what he tweeted. People didn't like the way that he spoke. Maybe they didn't like the way that he dressed or the way that his hairstyle was or his fake.
He abandoned the Kurds. He basically over the ANA with the Doha Agreement, where the ANA just were not present in Afghanistan, and basically put the Taliban in an incredible position of advantage and bargaining power. He released a bunch of Taliban fucking wankers to even have that Doha Agreement. So again, the drone war was ended by Biden, or virtually ended by Biden, not by Trump. It was actually still pretty consistent under Trump. So three things.
Tan, but none of that mattered because the United States was doing well. Our border was
Yemen was not peaceful during the Trump years. That's true.
secure. The world was a better place.
Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and actually violence in the West Bank escalated pretty badly after that period. So his peace plan for Palestine was the most insulting, ridiculous thing you could ever think of offering to the Palestinian people, and like should have predictably expected the violence that came out of that. So
with Donald Trump at the helm. And when Democrats talk about Joe Biden and they say, oh, you know, he's slipping a little bit, my goodness, we know that they are obviously gaslighting us, because we can clearly see that Joe Biden is not just slipping. He was slipping in 2020. He has slipped all the way now that we're in 2024. And it's not just little misspeaks here and there. Everybody has misspeaks. They mix people up. For Joe Biden, you have a special counsel report that quite plainly says we can't go after this man for his classified documents because he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That says it all right there. Maybe we can indict him 96 times. We can't charge him with 96.
Well, I think also with Biden, the problem was that he wasn't repeatedly asked by the authorities to give those documents back, and then followed up those requests by ignoring them. I don't think that's what happened with Biden, was it? That did happen with Trump. Nor was there evidence of Biden like deliberately moving them around to avoid, like even after he was supposed to give them back. So
things, because he simply is not cognitively there enough to be able to withstand it. That's the leader of the United States. That's the best the Democrats can do for their party. I'm sorry. You guys better be shaking in your boots if that's what you're going to go with in November.
I mean, Destiny, you know, I know your view of Trump, but Destiny, it's hard to argue with a lot of what Tomi just said.
The fact that I'm watching Piers Morgan call someone Destiny. Oh my God. Okay.
I mean, the Democrats seem to me to be sleepwalking in to a complete disaster if they're not careful. Biden does look, from here across the pond anyway, like someone who can barely string a sentence together or stay on his own 2 feet. How would anyone vote for someone given they have to do 4 years more from November as President of the United States, the toughest job in the world?
I mean, it depends on what you're pushing for. I mean, if you want to elect a comedian because he's got good charisma, then I agree that Trump definitely has better stage presence than Biden does. I think if you're a Democrat, you want to support Biden, you just have to try to stick in the realm of fact. Republicans inhabit a totally separate world right now. I just heard Tomi Lahren say that we're doing better on the foreign policy front because Trump was better for being in endless wars. I mean, he bombed Syria. He abandoned Kurdish allies. He kicked the can down the road in Afghanistan. He hid Yemen drone strikes from us. He was still part of the Saudi-led coalition to bomb Yemen. He didn't do anything about Russia's takeover of Crimea. I mean, like, the idea that Trump was better on any of these areas of foreign policy is ridiculous. The idea that he was better domestically when he completely mishandled
Obama, by the way. That was
Obama's
Obama.
Not my anointing.
Yes, and the Civil War kept on going under Trump, and Trump did fucking absolutely nothing. Yeah, okay.
My friend.
That's great. But Trump still didn't do anything about it. Even if you think that Trump does have good ideas for the country, he has just failed as a leader. He's a failure of a businessman. He's a failure of a leader. He can't get people together to write legislation. Joe Biden, in all his senility, was somehow able to pass the same infrastructure bill that Donald Trump said for 4 years he was going to get done. He didn't. Donald Trump couldn't even repeal or replace Obamacare, which is what a lot of Republicans literally voted him to do. Like, the idea that Trump is a competent leader is anything more than just a comedian or a guy that does funny one-liners on Twitter is delusional.
I mean, you can blame him for many things, but as Tomi said, you can't blame him for the takeover of Crimea, because that was years before Trump came into power.
No, I'm not blaming him for the takeover of Crimea. I'm saying that Trump has never made a good but difficult foreign policy decision. If you look at the Doha agreement that he made with the Taliban, he kicked the can down the road. He says that he would be strong on Ukraine. The only thing he cared about for Ukraine was trying to get information about Hunter Biden.
What about what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan? which was the most shameful and disgraceful overnight fleeing of a country and throwing...
Based on the Doha agreement that came from Trump, though, the timeline was set by Trump. It was Trump who put the Taliban in probably the most advantageous position possible with the Doha agreement. It was Trump who weakened the credibility of the ANA by basically shunning them and ignoring them in the Doha agreement. It was Trump who agreed to the release of a bunch of Taliban prisoners as part of the Doha agreement. So yeah, at the end of the day, after the Doha agreement, there was going to have to be someone who made the hard decision to pull people out of Afghanistan. But Trump didn't do that. Yeah, because he was too much of a coward to do it. That's why Biden had to do it. There was no right way to pull out of Afghanistan, a country that has been riddled with like divisions and ethnic tensions, and the fact that the Taliban were never really functionally disappeared because of their support from Pakistan. Like, there was never going to be a correct way to pull out of Afghanistan. It's just that someone had to do it and take the beating at it in the polls, and Biden did it and Trump didn't.
Millions of Afghan women back to the Taliban walls. Now, you can
if you can't tell, I'm practicing for like how I would handle a debate like this. That's why I'm talking like like a bit weird. All right.
Trump, all you like for that, but the bottom line is it happened under Joe Biden.
Because I feel like I can get my points out. I don't think I need to get better at just rolling. I feel like I hesitate and go on tangents too much. We need to smash. We need to get better at blowing out, because these are all blowouts. Like you take your turn, you get your 15, 20 seconds in, you blow out, and then we need to get better at those.
His watch, he was president. It was a catastrophic failure, that evacuation. So many allies and friends of the Americans were left in its wake. Many people died that day. And women in Afghanistan...
Because this is the hardest job anyone's ever done, just so you guys know. This stream in particular, all the other streamers have it easy, you know?
Afghanistan have gone back to the medieval dark ages. That's on Joe Biden, isn't it?
No. If you read the Special Inspector General report for Afghanistan, the whole reason why that pullout happened on that timetable was because of the Doha agreements that Donald Trump signed. He drew our troop levels down to historic lows in Afghanistan for when Biden came into office, because Donald Trump put America on a timetable to leave that country. If Biden wanted to, he could have come in and undone that.
So you're blaming, just to be clear though, Destiny, you're blaming Donald Trump for a decision that was taken 8 months after he left office.
That decision was taken under Donald Trump. The timetable was established under Donald Trump.
He didn't have to stick to it. Joe Biden's a big boy. He's the president of the United States. I mean, Tommy, it seems to me that the desperate attempts...
Is he a big boy, Piers? Is he a big boy? I'm not so sure. He has to use like the kiddie stairs. But
oh my God, I would kill myself. What the man? Okay, Biden shouldn't... Do you think Biden should have stayed in Afghanistan even longer? Maybe 21 years, maybe 22, 23, maybe 23 years in Afghanistan. That might have actually been the right conditions for people to pull out. Is that what he should have done instead? Is that what a big boy would have done? And then Republicans, you know what they would have said? They would have said, oh my God, the Republicans would have said, Trump actually had a very well thought out plan to pull out of Afghanistan. And now Biden's too much of a coward to commit to it. He's keeping us in this endless war. Oh God, they would absolutely, of course they would fucking do that. Of course they fucking would. Why wouldn't they? You shouldn't say fuck on these things as well. Squid for hire, thanks for the $1.
In here, because I don't think anybody wanted to stay in Afghanistan. That wasn't the point. The timetable that Donald Trump negotiated, there was nothing wrong with the time.
But did that mean the timetable was a failure? That it was, because it was stuck to by Biden. I'm sorry.
Timetable. Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was catastrophic. He didn't have the support that he needed. He didn't have the strategy that he needed. It wasn't about staying in Afghanistan in perpetuity. Nobody wanted that. I'm sure Democrats didn't want to be in an endless war in Afghanistan either. It was the way that Biden handled it, and every time since then, he has failed when it comes to foreign policy. Now we've got Israel at war. We've got Ukraine still and heading into year, 2.5 of war that we are still funding. The world is a much more dangerous place. And that doesn't even bring me to my southern border where we have 10 million illegal immigrants who have invaded on Biden's watch. I'm sure my friend is going to tell me that that is Donald Trump's fault as well, even though he oversaw the most secure border that we...
Biden offered a border reform bill in exchange for funding to Ukraine. And the Republicans shot it down. It was one of the most right-wing border reform bills you could ever get. You probably ever have got from a Democrat president. And the Republicans said no to it. They didn't take yes for an answer.
believe in American history that we know of. So there is no disputing the record. You can say that Joe Biden was able
because they want immigration to be their hot button issue at the election. If Biden gets that very right-wing immigration bill passed in his presidency, then the Republicans have nothing to bash him on when he gets to the election. Like,
to sit there as a shadow president while things got passed through Democrat chambers, but you can't sit here and tell me that the man is cognitively well or that he's done anything on his own accord to better the world of the United States.
Well, let me ask Destiny.
My friend, you know this.
Let me ask Destiny my favorite question of all my liberal friends, which is, do you know how many illegal immigrants Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
Quite like a couple of million, wasn't it? It was a lot. Was it a million something or was it hundreds of thousands? It was a lot. Deporter in chief. He's used this gotcha for years. He used it against Ash in like what, 2018? In 2012, it was 400,000. It was over a million. I thought it was 2 million or 3 million.
How many illegal immigrants did he deport, or did they have
did he have deported, thrown out of the country?
I don't know the number of that.
Have a guess.
For when you say deport, you mean somebody that was already...
He's so happy with this. He did this to Ash Sarkar, and when it was the "I'm a communist, you idiot" thing. Remember that whole thing? I'm literally a communist, and they got a T-shirt made out of it. Where was it? Oh God.
Box. You smarmy.
When was it? 2018? It was 5 years ago. He's been using the same question. Adam, thanks for the 15 shekels. What did I do? I don't know.
In the country, and then they were caught by in the country and removed. My guess is those numbers are always fairly low. Probably less than a million. I have no idea. I truly have no idea.
3 million, which is the greatest number pro rata of any president in history, and earned him the moniker in Mexico of deporter in chief. And yet, oddly, whenever I talk to my liberal friends, they never know this. They never made a fuss at the time. They were quite comfortable about that happening. And I look at what's going on the southern...
He actually knows the answer. He answered correctly when Rob Noor asked him.
...border now. Apparently, Biden's going down the same day as Trump on Thursday, which will be fascinating. But he hasn't been there I don't think he may have been once before in his time as president, which is insane, given how obviously problematic the southern border has become. Whichever side of the political divide you're on, would you accept that?
Would I accept that the border is a problem?
Well, not only a massive problem, but that President Biden, to date, in his tenure, has done absolutely nothing but make it worse.
I don't know about absolutely nothing but make it worse. I think one of the issues right now is Republicans are holding up funding to actually apportion more money to border security. I think that there are definitely border problems that exist right now that definitely need attention. But I think comparing it to Donald Trump, when he was able to utilize the emergency of COVID and the fact that the immigration numbers were at historic lows over the COVID period, and then to say that, well, look, he did a way better job than Biden did, where once COVID ends and then everything starts to open up again, you see a huge surge of immigrants, isn't the most fair comparison. But obviously, yes, something needs to be done with the border, of course. And I hope that Republicans approve funding in Congress for something to actually be done.
Well, Tomi, that's an interesting point where I would be critical, I think, of your position on this, because I absolutely believe that Ukraine has got to be helped to defeat Putin, or at least hold him off, because the alternative for the West, it seems to me, is extremely dangerous and alarming, which is that Vladimir Putin seizes large chunks of a sovereign democratic country and is allowed to keep it. And the idea that won't embolden him to just go and do the same elsewhere, I think is for the birds. I also think it's for the birds that China, looking at this, won't then immediately think about invading and taking back Taiwan.
Well, I would also say this. If Donald Trump were our president right now, Putin would have never done that because he didn't when Donald Trump was in office. We mentioned earlier under Obama,
How much of an American exceptionalist do you have to be to think that like Putin's decision-making on whether or not he invades Ukraine is solely dependent on who the United States president is? Jesus Christ.
Go and take Crimea under Biden, go in and try to take Ukraine. So Donald Trump will just say...
The civil war was raging on under Trump. I understand this. The fucking Minsk Accords were like violated on Russia's end as well, by the way, under Trump. Like, actually, I don't even know if the Minsk Accords, they were 2015. So they were already done. 2014. Yeah, so they were already ditched. Like, even after that, was there even any attempt? Was there no Minsk 3, was there? When was Minsk 2? Minsk 2 was 2015. There wasn't even an attempt under Trump. Like, Trump was 2016. That's even worse. There wasn't even an attempt from Trump's presidency until Biden's. It's not like the fighting ever stopped.
He started no new wars, and the world was either respectful of Donald Trump or fearful, doesn't matter which. I would also say this. We don't, on my side, when I talk about not funding Ukraine anymore, it's not because we want Putin to take Ukraine. It's because we understand that here in the United States of America, we have more problems that we have to attend to. We've got homeless veterans. We've got a border invasion of our own. So the thought of sending more money,
I keep hearing.
Well, why not approve Ukrainian funding in exchange for Biden's border bill, which was shot down by the Republicans because it's the only issue that they can take to the election? Oh, God.
I keep hearing this, but I find it really odd to hear any American conservatives almost saying Putin should be allowed to just take what he's taken. That would never have happened 20 years ago in American political discourse. There's been a massive sea change in conservative mentality to how to deal with a Russian dictator. But secondly, on the wider point about Ukraine, surely it comes down to this. If we applied the same mentality to Adolf Hitler in World War II, we'd all be likely speaking German.
Cordial, cephalopod with a gifted sub. Thank you so much. I love this British thing where of all the bad things they can think about that would come from a Nazi takeover of Europe, the one example they always go to is that we'd be speaking German. You know, not that there'd be concentration camps and death camps all across the UK, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy. None of that. Before any of that, okay, we'd be speaking German. And as fucking British people, the idea of having to learn a second language versus the Holocaust being extended to the UK, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I just love it. I just love that no one stops to think that, like, of all the things that would have gone wrong, of all the things that would have happened under a Nazi-occupied UK, the first thing we think about is us sitting at our fucking desks, having to learn Der, Die, and Das, and Guten Tag, and fucking... I don't... It's so silly. Learning umlauts, A, B, C, D. Eins, zwei, drei. Jesus Christ.
Why are we so...
Ich liebe dich, Bunderbauchs. Nice one. Love you too.
Weak about standing up to him in Ukraine. It's the same as when Hitler invaded.
Kopf, Shooter, nie unsane, nie unsane. that or concentration camps, you guys.
Poland.
Piers, it's not the same because Ukraine is a corrupt country. So we also have to deal with that. There are many Americans that you'll talk to that initially supported aiding and assisting Ukraine. And then as we sent more and more money, and as the Pentagon couldn't account for $1 billion in weapons, and as we're not really sure where the accounting is going for this, we have a lot of concerns, as we should, because we're sending our hard-earned tax dollars to a corrupt country.
Why can't you help Ukraine?
Russia's corrupt, but guess what's the number two?
Right.
Ukraine.
But why can't you help Ukraine and fix the southern border? Why does it have to be one or the other? America has the money to do this. It has the military firepower to help Ukraine. And it also has the ability, if it really focuses.
Well, they do. They have a budget for the border and they have a budget for the military that they've had because they're the richest country in the universe. Like, wait. Get her, Pierce. Never send a Dustin to do a Piers Morgan's job. Look at him go. This simple-as bulldozer British fucking slab.
To sort the southern border out. I don't understand this argument that America can't do two things at once. It's the number one superpower in the world, isn't it? I mean,
well, it would be nice if we could do two things at once.
Back to basics.
With a stroke of a pen, President Biden could help solve the border crisis. He is not going to do that. It's not a matter of can you. It's a matter of are our leaders able to? And unfortunately, they're not. But when you look at Ukraine, which is a corrupt country, and we're sending our tax dollars over there for now going on over 2 years, it's problematic for a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans don't know where our money is going. We don't know how it's being accounted for. We don't trust our government or theirs. years to tell us where it's going. So that's where the problem lies.
Okay, let me bring in.
And we also believe if we really want to squeeze Putin and we want to squeeze Russia, but Piers, I want to say this, we should be focusing also on American energy independence, because when you have strong American energy independence, that's another way
but
that
America,
you cut
America
off funding
broadly
for
has
Putin.
one. America has broadly more energy independence than most countries in the world. So that's not a big problem. Your independence.
He only talks about Palestine right at the end.
Energy is very strong compared to most European countries. Destiny, you've been listening patiently to this. I want to play a clip. This is Trump talking about foreign policy in his speech at the weekend.
Viktor Orban, somebody I respect greatly. A lot of people respect him. Tough guy, smart guy. He made the statement recently. He said, you bring back Trump, it'll all stop. They all listened to Trump. They respected Trump. He actually said it stronger than he said they were afraid of Trump. I don't want people to be afraid of me. But he said China was afraid, Russia was afraid. They were all afraid of Trump. Bring him back, and it'll all go back.
What do you think, Des? I mean, there is an argument to say that Trump's erratic, unpredictable style on the global stage did make people think twice. I mean, not much.
It's so fucking naive. Anyway.
Of any serious gravity happened on his watch. He did not, as Tommy says, he didn't launch a new war anywhere. Is there some merit to the madness, if you like?
No. People seem to want to give Trump credit for some things, like people not starting wars or people not engaging in certain types of, I guess, international armed conflict decisions. But the reality is that if you analyze any of the actual particular things that he did when it came to foreign policy, most of them were the precursors for the conflict that we are now blaming on Biden. For instance, I brought up before the round of Doha talks that happened between the Taliban and the United States. The Afghanistan government wasn't even included in those talks. If you look at what's happening right now in Israel and Palestine, the whole Abraham Accords, where Donald Trump was heralded as having peace in the Middle East, the whole reason that was done in a way was to avoid Israel annexing the West Bank and to undermine the Palestinians there that wanted to negotiate with Israel for peace. The whole Abraham Accords completely cut them out of the conversation. It's one of the reasons why Hamas felt so slighted. It's one of the reasons why Palestinians are engaging in more violent activity against Israel, is because nobody's ever been negotiating with them. So there's like this very superficial view that you can take where you can say, oh, Donald Trump was good for foreign policy because no new wars happened to start under this 4-year time period. But if you look at what he was actually setting up in any of the countries where the conflict was going on, all he was doing was setting the stage to kick the can down the road for future conflict to erupt, which it has.
All right, Destiny, what would you give Trump credit for?
What domestically or internationally?
Anything. Give him some credit for something.
Let's see, if I had to give Trump credit for anything, I mean, our economy was strong under Trump. I do think sometimes that Democrats are too heavy-handed when it comes to things related to welfare or things related to taxation. I don't like the idea of demonizing success. I think that Republicans typically do a better job or did do a better job at
the vaccine rollout would be a good one there. Operation Warp Speed for the vaccine.
Like patriotism or championing wealth or people that were making money. So I guess I would give Trump, I guess,
not the rollout, just like coming up with the vaccine, with the war.
Or credit for things like that. I mean, I saved money on my taxes.
And Tommy, just to return the favor, can you think of something good to say about Joe Biden?
No.
When I look at my country right now, there's not a whole lot that I could say about Joe Biden. I think he seems like a nice man. He seems like perhaps a good husband, perhaps a good father, supporting, obviously, Hunter Biden. So he seems like he is, I'll use the words of the special counsel, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. I don't think he's a bad person. I think that he's uniquely bad at this job. And I think it's time for someone to come and make America great again. And that's the most we're gonna get out of
I love how you answer that question just by saying no, and I want Trump back in. Damn. She's Morgan.
Wait, in one of the most exploding economies in the history of the United States and the recovery from COVID, and there's not in all of the foreign policy guidance we have related to Ukraine and Israel, there's not a single
the infrastructure bill that Trump couldn't pass.
Positive thing that we can say about Biden's presidency right now?
Well, no, here's what I would say to you. Again, it comes down to perception, Destiny, which is you're not wrong to say that the economy is in pretty good shape in America compared to most other countries. The problem is people in America aren't giving Biden the credit because his approval ratings are in the tank because they basically see a guy who's senile and they don't want that person to carry on being president. 2/3 of Democrats don't want him to run again. It's not even a Republican issue. His own party don't want him to.
I definitely agree there's perception issues, but I mean, hey, listen, we're in the media. The goal is to fight the perceptions because I think the perceptions are crafted here. And again, I question the authenticity of people that are calling Biden's job performance, into question because of his senility when Donald Trump got almost no major legislation passed, when Donald Trump kicked the can down the road on every single large issue. I also think that a lot of the perceptions of Americans right now in terms of voting for Biden and his favorability is having to do with the fact that apparently a lot of Americans aren't even sure who's going to be on the ballot. I think a lot of Americans still have questions about Biden running because of his age. A lot of Americans still have questions about Trump running because of the incoming indictments. I think as the months start to creep forward, I think we might see sentiment change, especially if the special election history over the past few years in America has been any indication about where American sentiments are feeling in terms of supporting Democrats or Republicans.
All I would say in response to that is that if you look just at the Iowa caucus, he didn't even win that in 2016. But he won it this time by a landslide. That says to me that support for Trump is increasing. And remember, he got nearly 10 million more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016. That was after 4 years of... if you listen to Democrats, after 4 years of the most hellish presidency in history, 10 million more Americans went out and voted for him. I just want to switch gears to Tomi. I know you've got to go. Quickly about Prince Harry and what Donald Trump said about him, saying that this is in relation to this court case where the Biden administration has been defending Harry over an attempt to try and have his visa immigration papers
We're talking
made
about Prince Harry. Oh my God.
To see whether he had...
Pierce, you fucking... First of all, the worst thing you can think about, or the quintessential example you can think about of why a Nazi takeover of Europe would have been bad, is that fucking mince and tatties, meat and two veg, steak and kidney pie, shepherd's pie, fish and chips, salt and vinegar bullshit British wankers like you would have to learn a second language. And now it's like, let me ask you about Prince Harry. What if Jesus Christ, come on. We only have so many minutes on this planet, right? I don't...
Admitted his drug abuse that he revealed in his book, because that might disqualify him for his right to stay in the country.
I was trying so hard not to say the F slur because that's a British delicacy. I was trying so hard not to say the meat pie, whatever the fuck it is. Oh no.
Country, and it seemed to me the Biden administration, through the immigration people they put up, went out of their way to defend Harry, saying that he may not have even meant what he wrote in the book. It wasn't facts, almost basically saying, look, he probably lied, so we can't take it seriously, which is pretty damning, given it was his autobiography. But when Trump was asked about this, he said, I wouldn't protect him. He betrayed the Queen. That's unforgivable. He would be on his own if it was down to me. I would say that's quite ominous, because if Trump was to win the election and win back the White House, given the way Harry and Meghan have talked about Trump in a very disparaging manner, I could quite see Trump being petty enough to put Harry on the first boat out of China or out of America.
Well, I'll tell you this, there are a lot more people that need to be deported that have come to our country illegally, a lot for Donald Trump to do on day one to get our country back on track. But I will say this, Donald Trump is not somebody who coddles people. He's not somebody who is going to coddle Prince Harry and Meghan. Obviously, they've said bad things about him.
He coddles his supporters when they break into the Capitol building and try to disrupt the fucking peaceful transfer of power. But I suppose he's right. That he won't coddle people like Prince Harry, I suppose.
Him and the Biden camp, Harry, the Democrats like Harry and Meghan because they feel like maybe there's some kind of liberal superstars. But, I think Donald Trump is going to tell it like it is, and he doesn't care how much money you have, and he doesn't care how many books you've written or what your status is. Donald Trump is going to do what Donald Trump's going to do, and law and order is going to make a comeback. If that unfortunately negatively impacts Prince Harry, I don't think I'll be crying myself to sleep at night. I don't think you will either, Piers.
Well, we don't want him back here. This is the problem. This could be a nightmare for the Brits. He's so unpopular here. Tomi, you've got to go. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I appreciate it. Good luck with your own show, which you're going to take now.
Why do you care? It's not like the Royals walk around fucking Leicester Square and you have to bump into him by mistake some days. God.
And thank you for joining us.
We have Prince Andrew in this country. Are we worried about Harry coming here? Oh, Jesus.
Destin, you're going to stay with me because I want to talk to you about your response to last week's debate on Uncensored between Professor Norman Finkelstein and Rabbi Shmuley. I think it's fair to say you weren't massively complimentary. Let's take a look.
Oh my God. Is there any debate? Is this actually a real debate? Or is it, who the is this loser? This is embarrassing. Rabbi Shmuley? Is he like a Twitter guy? How am I going to survive in a real one-on-one debate? This is his real talking speed. This is just stupid debate. Ugh.
I can do an interview, thank you.
I can't believe he's giving pushback to Norm on this debate, and he let this guy yap on the most retarded ad hom for like 20 minutes.
He included the word retarded. Oh no. Sorry, I don't want to disturb the flow. Let's watch it again. Let's go from the start, okay?
Oh my God. Is there any debate? Is this actually a real debate? Or is it, who the is this loser? This is embarrassing. Rabbi Shmuley? Is he like a Twitter guy? How am I going to survive in a real one-on-one debate? This is his real talking speed. This is just stupid debate. Ugh.
I can do an interview, thank you. I
can't believe he's giving pushback to Norm on this debate, and he let this guy yap on the most retarded ad homs for like 20 minutes. Oh my God, but he's not going to answer it. It's just like, it's a stupid argument on so many different levels.
I don't equivocate either with the other.
Sound the incorrect use of equivocate alarm. Bro, oh my God. These are the types of posts I banned from my subreddit. We get it. Oh my God.
Just on a technical point, I think I was using the word equivocate correctly there, unless I'm wrong.
I'd have to go back and analyze the use of the word equivocate. Let me be clear: the stuff we do on stream is obviously way more relaxed than this environment. But the main criticism, that I basically have with almost all of the Israel-Palestine debates is both sides have this hyper-specific narrative that tends to omit every single exculpatory thing from the other side, and it drives me crazy. So whether it's a rabbi on here that's talking about like the innocence of Israel, or even the guy you had on right before saying like, well, Israel doesn't like to fight, we don't like to do that. It's like, really? Because Israel has taken advantage of every single military opportunity they've had in the history to expand their territory.
He backed that. Yeah, it was a very impressive pivot away from the equivocate thing. I think if that was me, I'd be like, well, you know, equivocate is when you, it doesn't mean to equate two things. That's not actually what equivocating is. Equivocating is when you, what is actually equivocating? Is it when you kind of like dance around a particular issue without committing to an exact position? Isn't that what equivocating is? Or sometimes I've heard equivocating used in the fallacious term when you use what is it when you do, God, there's something else people do with equivocating. That's one use, but there's equivocation fallacy, which is a bit different. What the fuck is it? Because I was looking for a term for this for ages. What was it? I've been doing this live with Piers, and he would have to sit and wait while I look up the word. It's when, it's an example. Calling two different things by the same name in an ambiguous way. Is just like the concentration camp. I don't fucking know, whatever. Like you can't leave a concentration camp, and people in Gaza can't leave, so they're both concentration camps. Like that kind of shit, is that equivocating? But that's not really how people would usually use it. People usually use the word equivocate to mean like ambiguously using your language in a way that's kind of deceptive, in a way that's avoiding you committing to like a concrete position. Yeah. Okay.
Saying they don't want to fight is really silly. But then on the other hand, you get pro-Palestinian people who would say things like, well, Hamas can be a partner for peace. And October 7th was just in response to the horrible concentration camp-like conditions of a region of the world that really isn't even doing that bad compared to other places in the region.
So actually, it's actually a problem that I have with a lot of people, right? Because I always get fucking butt mad about people who talk about like genocide and all that, and they'll say genocide, and then they'll say here's a quote, here's this number of people dying, this number of people dying, and this number of people died in this period during the Holocaust. So that's actually like, that would probably be like equivocation as well to me. Yeah.
I just hate how hyperbolized both sides of the argument are.
I actually don't disagree with you, and I thought Rabbi Shmuley's ad hominem attacks on the professor were completely over the top, but actually quite illuminating about him and his style of debating. I don't think it played well with the audience at all. And I had a lot of Israelis tweeting.
Because unequivocal means like clear, doesn't it? One possible meaning. That's why it's unequivocal. Ooh. Oh my God, I didn't even know that. My brain is getting so big.
He's saying, why do you keep having this guy on? He talks in such an inflammatory manner that it doesn't make us look good. So I think that he let himself down a bit there. And on the wider point, I kind of agree. I've had so many of these debates about Israel. It's very hard to do anything that doesn't immediately get dragged to the extremities in terms of the debate. Very hard to reach any point of consensus. You know, and I find that that's the dispiriting thing about that debate. And it may explain why the whole conflict in the Middle East, between Israel and Palestine, has been going on 75 years and appears so completely intractable. Nobody gives an inch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's on the ground in Israel-Palestine, you have that issue where both sides have basically their myths that Israel fashioned themselves as these poor people, these poor Jews that wandered into the Middle East and had to fight these impossibly huge Arab armies that had domineering and overwhelming force and power and coordination, when in reality, post 48, Israel was always in a decent position to fight, and that was pretty obvious in their performance in 48, in 67, in 73. It was pretty obvious that they had the military capability to survive. But then on the other hand, you get, the Palestinian narrative of they were a poor, dispossessed people in their lands who only ever wanted peace. I think I saw a tweet saying we welcomed Israelis with open arms. That's
Stephen f***ed up Piers/Tomi on Trump. All they had was LOL senile. Trump is also considered mentally unfit by most Americans per polling. Shameless 2v1 by Piers.
See,
wasn't enough.
I didn't know that most Americans. Do you have the poll for that, Pondering? But I trust you. I just want to see it I just want to see it so I can put it on the screen, in case the other people don't believe you. Holy shit! Thanks for the $10 there. I appreciate that. I think he did let a bit too much slide with, or he just didn't get enough room. I suppose he didn't take enough space in that conversation. Yeah. But thanks for the $10. I appreciate that. God damn, I did not know that, because that just writes off the whole critique. Most Americans think Trump is unfit, is mentally unfit as well. John, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. God damn it, thank you so much. You guys are so generous today. My God. But you know what? You could always be more generous. Okay, have I told you? I don't know if I've told you guys how difficult my job is. I don't know if I've stressed it enough. Actually, just the fact. Not even. See, I'm supposed to think of an interesting and creative, like imagery, a description of how difficult my job is. Like the Sisyphean fucking actual overwhelming task of doing this job and entertaining you guys. Remember I said the pub analogy right at the beginning? Imagine I'm like serving drinks and I'm trying to fucking, just do my job, make some spare change, keep my little pub running. I got all my regulars, my baldy pink men. They're all like kind of fat, but also incredibly strong, and quite round. But then 1,667 cunts come in, and they've all got something to say all at once. They're not even asking for anything. They're just saying things like, imagine you're working your job, right? And someone comes up to you and says, baldy pink men, omega lol, harder than the workers at Chernobyl post meltdown. And then another guy comes in and he's like, I'm green, loner book. And then someone else comes in and says, Keck W, Brit. You would just kill yourself. What's the point? Yeah. And that's what it's like for me. Like, who the fuck watches a political streamer? Who the fuck sits there and there's like, oh, there's some stuff happening in the news and I don't really know what to think about it, so maybe Lonerbox will tell me what to think about this thing in the news. Will I watch the actual news? No. Will I read a newspaper article? No. Will I go to jail? Fuck no. I'll just go to this guy, this unqualified cuck. Look at yourselves. Look in the mirror. Get out of your fucking desk. Look in the mirror and come back and tell me what you see in chat, okay? What's this? Should be absolutely fucking ashamed. Hang on. Fuck. Where's the mental deficiency? Both think they're too old. Okay. Where's the mental deficiency one? Is there a graphic for that? I can't hear it here. See it here. Cognitive. This is too old. Oh, here. So slightly more people, but it's a majority for both. 64% think Biden is not mentally fit for presidency, and Trump 51%. Greatest country on earth, you guys. Richest, most militarily powerful, most sophisticated, most like technologically advanced. Bro. You guys are fucking killing it. I feel like this is one of the lowest bars as well, is mental fitness. I think mental fitness matters if you're trying to work in a fucking shop, stacking shelves. I think mental fitness probably comes into play if you're laying bricks, or those guys who just drill into the ground with the big bouncy pneumatic drill that's really loud. And you don't really know why they're doing it. You just assume there's a good reason. Or the guys with high-vis vests putting tar on the road. Or a barista. Like, the shining shoes. I feel like all these pipe fixers, all these jobs, I feel like mental fitness is like the first bar you got to cross, right? Otherwise you won't get the job. But President of the United States of America, okay. Top job, top executive branch of the United States government. Jesus. What the fuck?
Absolutely not true. I think that the on-the-ground narratives contribute to the conflict feeling intractable. But unfortunately, I think internationally, I think we feed into the intractability as well. Because people are, that conflict is so perfect for everybody to have a really strong opinion.
Get Josiah in here. I mean, I have a waiting room. Is he coming in? Or he's not in the waiting room, so...
You've got brown people and white people. You've got Jews and Muslims. You've got oppressed and oppressors. You've got Western colonial and Middle Eastern countries. Like, everybody can have an opinion about this conflict because of the different parties involved. And people are so not level-headed when it comes to evaluating what's going on that they end up hyping up both sides, and they elevate the expectations to unrealistic levels, which means neither side is really willing to actually settle for a realistic resolution that might make both sides feel a little bit good and a little bit unhappy.
What do you think a realistic resolution looks like?
Raiders Cat, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. And Z, thanks for the 10 gifted subs. Holy shit, you guys. Thank you so much. Wow.
I think it's a multifaceted thing, but I would say that it has to be some kind of two-state solution, and both sides need to be willing to negotiate for peace. And this is the hard one, both sides probably need to be willing to sacrifice a little bit for peace. That means that not every Palestinian is going to be happy with the final resolution. It means that Abbas might have to suffer, even more loss of his popularity, or whatever Palestinian leader rises might have to suffer more loss of popularity. It might mean on the Israeli side, similar.
What if you made a joke about both sides having to sacrifice something for peace, and it's like, oh, but not in the Shaheed suicide bomber way, not that kind of, not in the Fedayeen self-sacrifice way. He should have said that. That would have flown really well, I think, in this audience. I think he should have said that. I think he missed an epic fucking dunkster. I'm sorry.
Similar to Begin or Rabin, negotiators for peace in the past, you might have to pay a political price for being a negotiator for peace, because sometimes the Israeli people or your Knesset doesn't always support you when you're negotiating peace against either Arab states or Palestinians. But the leadership has to be there, that has to be willing to suffer a setback or some loss initially for the peace agreement, and then both people need to have some kind of...
Don't say that. I'm not even going to read out the chat. No. You. Jesse Irwin.
Tolerance to say, hey, listen, we might not get everything we want on the old city. That applies to Jews and Muslims, or that applies to Israelis and Palestinians. Or, hey, we might have to do a lot of land swaps in the West Bank. Hey, all of these settlements that are outside of directly near the Green Line, maybe these do need to be torn down. But yeah, the conversation, we're not even a place where we can start the conversation on that yet, because people don't even know if Hamas should exist or not, or if Israel has a right to defend itself, or if maybe murdering 1,200 civilians is a reasonable response to the supposed concentration camp conditions that exist in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, you did a debate with Cenk Uygur, who's been on this show many times. In it, you said about deaths in Gaza that the ratio of Hamas to civilians killed were good ratios. But I'm not sure about that. And I'll tell you why. The problem I have with the whole death rate in Gaza, especially when there's a comparison made to World War II and how many German civilians were killed and so on, is that there is a unique population in Gaza of 50% children. Now, 50% of the 2 million are under 18. That's 1 million kids running around in Gaza. And already we've seen 30,000 civilians killed, with 70,000 more wounded, many of whom are children. And that is something I've not seen in any recent conflict. And that's what makes it uniquely horrific to people.
I agree that it makes it uniquely horrific to people. I think it's really important to have a good understanding of why international humanitarian law, or more specifically, international law of armed conflict exists. I think that people have a really poor understanding that the law of armed conflict exists to make it so that the fight is even on both sides. But that's not true. It exists for two very important reasons. One is to protect civilians, and the second is to ensure that nations have a right to defend themselves. If either one of these fail, nobody would care about the law of armed conflict. I think the difficulty that Israel has right now in conducting their war against Hamas is that their cause for war, wanting to do something about Hamas, I think is undeniably righteous. That if you've got an organization that comes in, they kill, some 1,100, 1,200 citizens, and then they, capture hostage 200 more. Not only has Hamas not had a good cause for war, not only have they committed multiple war crimes in the actual commission of the October 7th attack, it gives Israel a justification to attack. Now, Israel's conduct in war is a second question. It's a very difficult question to answer. When people try to evaluate if the conduct is good or bad, they oftentimes just look at the number of civilian deaths. But when you're actually evaluating from a legal perspective on whether or not attacks are good or not, the obligation for the belligerent, for the attacking party, is just to try to do what they can to reduce civilian casualties. Now, civilian casualties are tragic. They absolutely—
I think this is where you should have brought in Dr. Avi's relative risk formula. What is it? Rather than doing ratio, what you should actually do is militant casualties over, militant deaths over militant population, and then put that over civilian casualties over civilian population ratio. Yeah. Relative risk. Let's go.
Absolutely are. But Hamas also has a responsibility as the sole administrator in the region to shield their population, not use them as human shields, to make sure their population is allowed to flee, not tell them to stay in their homes.
So the proportion of militants that are killed over the proportion of civilians that are killed, because it's the war's happening in the entire area. Yeah. Because even Hamas have said 6,000 out of their 30,000 fighters are dead, which means that Israel has killed, what, 20% of, according to Hamas numbers, Israel has killed 20% of Hamas militants. Whereas of the civilian population, that would have meant they've killed what, like, how would you do that actually? Hang on 1 second. Gaza population roughly with 2.2 million. So I can just do that really quickly. It would be 20, it would come down to 24,000 if we're just taking the 30,000 max, divided by, no, not divided by, how does that work? Oh God. How would it work? I wanted to get, as a percentage, 24,000, I think I know it is, okay. 24,000 out of 2.2 million. This would be the, if Avi were on Piers Morgan, how he would have to say it. So you would have to say that Israel has killed 20% of the Hamas fighters and only 1% of the Palestinian population, of the civilian population in Gaza, which would suggest that they are targeting the militants. When you actually put it that way, that's kind of what you would say. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is definitely no targeting of civilians happening. It could absolutely be the case that there are operations and particular commanders or particular generals or particular units that are just massacring people whilst all this is happening. But yeah, that's kind of where you would get that from. It seems to be that so far Israel has killed 20% of the Hamas militant population and 1% of the total civilian population. So what's the calculation of the Hamas attack? Interesting. Let's have a look. Hamas is harder because Gaza is a really easy one to do that calculation for because the war is happening everywhere. So you just need the population of the whole strip. I don't know if you were going to do the Hamas attack. Would you get the population of all of Israel or would you get the population of just the south to make it more fair? I don't think you would do the population of all of Israel, would you? You'd have to do the population of the south. I wonder how Avi did that. It would only be the zone of conflict. And that's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because rockets were fired. Oh, shit. And the boundaries of South Israel would be really difficult to figure out as well. Because I don't think Hamas literally attacked every village in the entire South, did they? How did you... That would have taken so long. You'd have to figure out every village that was attacked. The population of, like, between all the villages where they were on the roads. Oh, God. How would you do that? Fuck. The South District of Israel is 1.2 million people. Is that how he did it? This whole part here. But I don't know if Hamas dudes were running around fucking Eilat. Like, I don't know. Or around the Negev. They were like here, there was some here, and they were about here, right? There was like this kind of area here. Oh, fuck figuring that out. And the music festival, obviously, where the population of a certain area might have been higher than usually is because there are people from around the going, oh, God. Ugh. That. Waste of time. No way. Not doing it.
When Israel roof knocks, when they make phone calls, when they drop leaflets.
Then you have rockets all over. Yeah, you have to look up who was killed. Well, so would you do the whole of Israel then? Were Hamas rockets going into the north? I'm so interested. Hang on. Let's ask him.
When they give advance notice, when they give whole region-wide text messages, right? Israel's doing what they can, more than any other country has in any type of armed conflict, to try to warn the civilian population to flee. But for a variety of reasons, they're not doing it. Some due to Hamas, some maybe due to their...
Are you ready to have your mind... Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Fears of getting attacked anyway, because obviously there have been tons of places that have come under attack, even places in the south. But I just think it's important to note that when we're criticizing Israel, it can't be on the absolute number of deaths. It has to be on things like when the 3 hostages came out and they were shot by the IDF. Those are things where you're like, well, hold on. These guys were wearing white flags. Why are you shooting at these people? That's not good. It can't just be on the absolute number of casualties, because if that's the fixation, then in the future, no nation is going to consider any laws of armed conflict when going to war, because they're going to say, oh, well, they don't care what the ratios are. They don't care our targeting decisions. They're just upset that civilians are dying, which unfortunately and tragically always happens in the course of war.
If you were the parent of one of the 12,000 or so...
Do you want me to come on and explain how you could measure that? Well, Avi's about to tell me how he did. Oh my God. It's fucking huge. Why is it blurry? I think he just screen grabbed it. So he counted the military, the size of each brigade and battalion that was fighting. And the civilian, and he just got the populations of all the towns that were attacked. Okay. Gosh. He was gooning. Apparently, if you use the entire population of Israel, and also the entire military population, I guess you probably get the same result, he's saying. A similar result, not the same. I think this goes up from, because relative risk here apparently is 3.2. Total indiscriminate would be 1 usually, but again, yeah. Again, it doesn't tell you exactly the nature of it, because I imagine for Hamas, the beginning of the operation, they will have just been attacking civilians because no one was prepared for it. So they will have mostly been maybe like some police and all that, or maybe some military, but most of the deaths at the beginning will have been just civilian, because then probably in the later half of the operation, before they were pushed back to the border, it will have just been Hamas versus military, because the military would have separated themselves from the civilians. So it would also be, I'd imagine this number at the beginning of October 7th in the morning probably was quite low, much lower than 3.2, and then it started to climb up after the military got involved. I would be like 100% sure that's how it happened. Anyway.
Children who've been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Would you willingly and quickly buy into a brave new world of living peacefully side by side with Israel, or would you be implacably determined to exact revenge for the slaughter of your child?
I feel like on a personal level, especially somebody that has a child, I feel like I would want to fight till the end of time.
Right, that's my point. So that is the natural human reaction.
But society and leadership has to be better than the emotions and the whims of the individual, unfortunately, even though it's a bit insensitive to call it a whim. Yeah, society has to be better than the individual. People might want this, but they need leaders. That's the thing. A good analogy would be 9/11, right? Everyone wanted revenge, but the leadership and the people who actually are supposed to take these cold, hard decisions should have said, okay, we're all pretty mad. We shouldn't attack fucking Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't think. We're definitely not Iraq. Like, okay, fuck. Probably shouldn't bomb the entire Middle East. What? Why do people send this stuff in my Discord? Like, why? Why do I need this in my life? I don't. It's like a GIF. Can we get a GIF? These two pictures. All right, get your HD setting and get your screen grab. Go. Let's switch to the next one. Okay, get that one too. All right, you can. It's in the Discord in Lego Fortnite. You can make your GIFs out of that if you want. All right.
Reaction, which surely tens of thousands of Palestinian fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, they're going to have to this slaughter of the children. And so I don't understand why Israel thinks it's not just building for itself a potentially even bigger problem down the line in terms of the radicalization through deaths of children of the people who love those kids.
I understand what you're saying, but after World War II, I mean, we all got along after that in a surprisingly short amount of time, given how horrific some of the Japanese crimes were in China, given how horrific Germany's crimes were around all of Europe, or relating to concentration camps or death camps. Like, it is possible to mend those bridges. I do agree right now that Israel might be contributing towards more hatred of Jewish people, of Israeli citizens in the Gaza Strip. That's undeniable. But then the question becomes, well, who's responsible for managing Israeli public relations in the Gaza Strip? If you ask an Israeli citizen, like, hey, aren't you worried that you're going to radicalize people in the Gaza Strip? What Israeli citizens are thinking of is they're either thinking of watching the video of that girl go back on the back of the truck where everybody's like clapping and cheering, and they're thinking, well, they hate us anyway. Or they're thinking of the Second Intifada, where there are 4 or 5 years worth of attacks from 2000 to 2004 or 5 in Israel, and think, well, they already hate us anyway in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They're thinking of the Martyr Fund. They're thinking there are so many different aspects of this conflict that I agree Israel is giving Palestinians good cause to hate them, but Palestinians have given Israelis good cause to hate and not trust them either. And this is one of the problems that we talked about at the very beginning. The mythos runs so deep on both sides that they're both infinitely justified morally if they want to hate each other forever. But obviously, that's not a conductive road forward towards anything peaceful.
Destiny, I know you got a big debate coming up yourself.
We should give the PR job to Rabbi Shmuley. True.
With Professor Norman Finkelstein, hosted by Lex Friedman. That is going to be huge.
Huge.
You feeling ready for that?
The 3 people involved are all giants in this field. I am definitely a newcomer. I'm definitely like a YouTuber, streamer person. I hope that rhetorically I'm able to hang on to the conversation. Obviously, I've done a decent amount of research and reading, but obviously the 3 of these figures involved, have a much greater background than me in this issue. So I'm not going in with any illusion that I'm the subject matter expert here. My debate partner for this is Benny Morris, and this guy knows more about anything related to 48 history and everything with Israel. So I'm probably going to be leaning on his historical knowledge quite a bit.
Rest assured, I will be live commentating to return the favor.
I look forward to
There's no fucking way Piers is going to do it. I wish he does. Come on.
The back and forth videos and the reaction videos.
Destiny, great to have you.
I'll try not to use equivocate incorrectly. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Take care.
Piers W. Piers is mogging. He's mogging the content. Do we think Pierce's react will look anything like this?
Massively complimentary. Let's take a look.
Oh my God. Is there any debate? Is this actually a real debate? Or is it, who the is this loser? This is embarrassing. Rabbi Shmuley? Is he like a Twitter guy? How am I going to survive in a real one-on-one debate? This is just real talking speed. This is just stupid debate. Ugh.
I can do an interview, thank you.
I can't believe he's giving pushback to Norm on this debate, and he let this guy yap on the most retarded ad homs for like 20 minutes. Oh my God, but he's not going to answer it. It's just like, it's a stupid argument on so many different levels.
I don't equivocate either with the other.
Sound the incorrect use of equivocate alarm. Bro, oh my God, these are the types of posts I ban from my subreddit. We get it. Oh my God.
Just on a technical point, I think I was using the word...
Sorry, okay. Oh, God. Piers is he's a content demon. I can't, because the whole consensus in Britain for the last... since I can remember, is that Piers Morgan was a belligerent, shouty, fucking knuckle-dragging, 6-foot pus deposit who just made an ass out of himself, failed upwards, and just like fucking screamed at people inanely. Wasn't very good at debating, couldn't really think on his feet. Just was a fucking media clown. But now he's making some of the most like interesting content, like pulling all these like interesting figures and having all these debates and actually like chiming in pretty decently himself, like fairly thoughtfully and like asking the right questions generally. He used to attack 20 follower Twitter account. I don't remember him doing that, but maybe. But now he's just he's a fucking content titan out of nowhere. Who would have thought?